Marcus Whitfield's black sedan glides past Boston Common when he sees her, Simone. His ex-wife from 9 years ago, the woman who vanished without explanation. She's sitting on a weathered blanket surrounded by 3 children with her same dark eyes and his own sharp jawline. His breath catches. The math clicks into place 9 years since their divorce, 8-year-old triplets. His driver asks if everything's all right. Marcus can't speak, can't look away. Because if those children are his, then everything he believed about why she left was a lie. Marcus orders his driver to circle the block 3 times while he watches from behind tinted windows. Simone sits cross-legged on that thin blanket, helping one of the children with what looks like homework, while the other 2 share a single sandwich between them. The way she smooths down the little girl's hair, the protective way she keeps the boys close, it all tears something open inside Marcus' chest. He pulls out his phone with trembling fingers and calls Gerald Chen, the private investigator his company keeps on retainer for corporate espionage cases. This is corporate espionage. But Marcus needs answers, and he needs them yesterday. Gerald arrives within 40 minutes, a compact man with sharp eyes who asks no unnecessary questions. Marcus points to Simone and the children from across the street and says only 3 words that matter. Find out everything. Gerald nods and disappears into the crowd while Marcus sits in his sedan, unable to drive away, unable to approach, frozen in a moment that feels like drowning and surfacing all at once. That night, Marcus doesn't go home to his Beacon Hill mansion, where his fiancée Lauren is probably planning their spring wedding. Instead, he checks into a hotel room downtown and stares at his phone, waiting for Gerald's call. It comes at 2 in the morning. The information Gerald has gathered in just hours makes Marcus' blood run cold. Simone Carter, his ex-wife, worked as a paralegal at a mid-sized law firm until 6 months ago, when the firm downsized and she was let go. She burned through her savings, paying for the apartment she shared with the 3 children. But when the money ran out, they were evicted. For the past 6 months, they've been moving between shelters, sleeping in her 15-year-old Honda Civic when shelter beds weren't available, and relying on food banks and soup kitchens. The children, Maya, Jordan, and Isaiah, are 8 years old. Born on March 14th, 9 years ago minus 9 months puts conception right around June, which was exactly when Marcus and Simone were still married, right before she left. Gerald's voice is carefully neutral when he delivers the next piece of information. The children attend the William Lloyd Garrison Elementary School in Roxbury, though their attendance has been sporadic due to their housing situation. Teachers have noted that all 3 are bright but struggling, that they come to school hungry, that their clothes are worn and too small. Maya wants to be a scientist. Jordan loves to draw. Isaiah reads at a 6th grade level despite being in 3rd grade. They're good kids, Gerald says. And Marcus hears the unspoken accusation in those words. They're good kids, and they're sleeping in a car. But Gerald isn't finished. There's more, he says, and his tone shifts from neutral to something harder. 8 years ago, shortly after Simone would have discovered she was pregnant, she tried to contact the Whitfield family. Gerald has phone records showing 17 calls to the Whitfield estate, all routed to Victoria Whitfield, Marcus' mother. There are also records of a meeting between Simone and Victoria at a restaurant in Cambridge. 2 days after that meeting, $50,000 was deposited into Simone's bank account from a Whitfield family trust. And then Simone disappeared, changed her phone number, moved to a different apartment, cut off all contact. Gerald has pulled more records, and this is where his voice goes flat with suppressed anger. There are documents, he says. Legal documents filed with the family's attorneys that claim Simone Carter signed away all parental rights to any children and accepted a settlement to never contact the Whitfield family again. The documents are notarized, officially filed, and according to the law, completely binding. Marcus feels the room spin. He never saw these documents. He never knew about any of this. When Simone left 9 years ago, his mother told him that the girl had simply realized she didn't belong in their world, that she'd gone back to her own people, that it was for the best. Marcus had been heartbroken but had believed it, because why wouldn't he believe his own mother? Now he's staring at evidence that his mother paid off his pregnant wife and forged documents to keep him from ever knowing he had children. Gerald's final piece of information is the twist that makes Marcus physically ill. Hez tracked down the notary who supposedly witnessed Simone's signature on those documents. The notary, now retired and living in Florida, admits over the phone that Victoria Whitfield paid him $5,000 to notarize blank documents that were later filled in. He says he's not proud of it, but the statute of limitations has passed, and he's dying of lung cancer anyway, so what does it matter? Marcus, thanks Gerald, ends the call and spends the rest of the night vomiting into the hotel toilet, while his entire understanding of his life crumbles into dust. Marcus returns to Boston Common at dawn, before the city fully wakes, when the light is gray and soft and the homeless population is starting to stir under their blankets and cardboard shelters. He finds Simone packing up their few belongings into a rolling suitcase held together with duct tape, while the triplets sleep curled against each other like puppies seeking warmth. Marcus approaches slowly, his $3,000 suit feeling obscene in this setting, his Italian leather shoes quiet on the damp grass. Simone sees him before he can speak. Her whole body goes rigid. She moves instantly to put herself between Marcus and the sleeping children, her eyes wide with terror, and that look cuts him deeper than anything Gerald told him last night. She's not afraid of him, he realizes. She's afraid of what he represents, afraid of losing her children, afraid that the Whitfield machine that crushed her once is about to crush her again. Marcus holds up both hands in a gesture of peace and surrender. He says her name softly. Simone, just her name, nothing more. But his voice cracks on the syllables. She shakes her head, backing up another step, and whispers that he needs to leave, that he can't be here, that his mother will destroy her if she finds out Marcus found them. The children start to wake. Maya sits up first, rubbing her eyes, and Marcus sees his own mother's nose on her face, sees his father's high forehead, sees Simone's beautiful dark skin and full lips. Jordan and Isaiah wake next, and they're all staring at this strange white man in an expensive suit who's making their mother cry. Because Simone is crying now, silent tears running down her face while she tells Marcus that she tried so hard to tell him, that his mother threatened her and called her names that Marcus can't bear to hear repeated. Victoria Whitfield, pillar of Boston society, patron of the arts, philanthropist, and grande dame of Beacon Hill, had looked at Simone's pregnant belly and called her a ghetto trash opportunist who'd deliberately trapped a Whitfield man with her black womb. Victoria said the baby, she didn't know there were 3 yet, would be a mongrel that would pollute the family bloodline. Victoria said she'd make sure Simone never worked again, never saw Marcus again, never had a chance at a decent life unless she took the money and disappeared. Victoria said if Simone tried to fight, she'd drag her through courts for years, take the baby away, and make sure Simone ended up in prison on fabricated charges, because that's what the Whitfield family did to problems. So Simone took the $50,000 because she was 25 years old and pregnant and terrified, and she didn't know what else to do. She took the money and she ran. But she didn't abort the pregnancy, like Victoria demanded. Instead, she moved to a different part of Boston, changed her number. And when the ultrasound showed triplets, she cried for 3 days straight, because how was she going to raise 3 babies alone on $50,000? The money ran out faster than she'd expected. Daycare for triplets cost more than her salary. Medical bills from the high-risk pregnancy drained everything else. She worked 2 jobs while the babies were small, then went to paralegal school at night while they were in elementary school, clawing her way towards something stable. And she never told the children about their father because she was terrified that Victoria would find out and take them away with expensive lawyers and corrupt judges and all the power that old money could buy. Marcus listens to all of this while the rising sun turns the sky pink and gold behind them. When Simone finishes, her voice hoarse, he tells her about Gerald's investigation. He tells her about the forged documents. He tells her about the notary in Florida. He tells her that he never knew, that his mother told him Simone had simply left, that he spent 9 years thinking she abandoned him without explanation. He tells her that these children, these 3 beautiful children who are watching him with cautious, intelligent eyes, deserve to know their father. Simone collapses onto the ground like a puppet with cut strings. Maya, fierce and protective, wraps her arms around her mother and glares at Marcus. Jordan and Isaiah move closer, forming a wall. Marcus sees himself in them so clearly it hurts. He crouches down to their level, This billionaire CEO in his expensive suit sitting on the damp grass of Boston Common, and he looks each of his children in their eyes for the first time. He tells them his name is Marcus. He tells them he's been looking for them his whole life without knowing it. He tells them he'd very much like to help if they'll let him. Isaiah, the reader, the one who's too smart for his own good, asks the question that matters. Are you our dad? Marcus looks at Simone, asking permission with his eyes. She nods, just barely. Marcus looks back at Isaiah and says, yes, I think I am. And I'm going to prove it. And then I'm going to make sure you never sleep on the street again. Marcus Beacon Hill Mansion is a 4-story brownstone built in 1873, with original crown molding, imported marble fireplaces, and a view of the Charles River that real estate agents describe as priceless. It's also currently occupied by his fiancée, Lauren Pemberton, a woman whose family tree connects to the Mayflower and who's been planning their June wedding with the intensity of a military campaign. Marcus brings Simone and the triplets through the front door at 8:30 in the morning, past Mrs. Patterson, the head housekeeper who's been with the family for 20 years, past 2 maids who stop dusting to stare, and directly into the breakfast room where Lauren is eating Greek yogurt with granola while reading the society pages. Lauren looks up, takes in the scene of Marcus with a black woman and 3 black children who are clearly exhausted and underfed, and her face goes through several expressions in rapid succession. Confusion. Recognition. She'd met Simone once before the divorce. Disgust. Fury. She stands up so fast her chair tips over and demands to know what those people are doing in her house. Marcus corrects her quietly. His house. The Whitfield family house. And these people are his children and their mother. Lauren laughs. It's a sharp, brittle sound like breaking glass. She says Marcus can't be serious. She says this is obviously some kind of scam. She says everyone knows what these people do, showing up with fake children trying to get money from wealthy men. She says the children probably aren't even his. They don't look anything like him. They just look like... And she stops herself before finishing that sentence, but everyone knows what word she was about to use. Marcus tells her to pack her things and leave. Lauren's face turns red. She says she's not going anywhere, that they're engaged, that she's already sent out save-the-date cards to 300 people, that her mother is on the board of the Museum of Fine Arts with Marcus' mother. She says Marcus is obviously having some kind of breakdown, and she's going to call Victoria right now to handle this situation. Marcus tells her if she calls his mother, he'll have security escort her out in her pajamas. Lauren switches tactics. She turns to Simone with a smile that doesn't reach her eyes and offers her money. $10,000, she says, to take the children and disappear again. 20,000, 50,000, just leave and never come back. Simone doesn't even respond. She's holding Isaiah's hand so tight her knuckles are pale against her brown skin. Lauren's smile disappears. She looks at the triplets and says that these children don't belong here, that they'll never fit into this world, that people will always see them as charity cases at best. She tells Marcus he's throwing away his life, his reputation, his business for some ghetto woman who probably has 5 other baby daddies. Mrs. Patterson, standing in the doorway, nods along with this speech. 2 maids whisper to each other. Marcus fires Mrs. Patterson on the spot. 20 years of service ended in 1 sentence. He tells the maids to prepare 3 bedrooms immediately, or join Mrs. Patterson in unemployment. He turns to Lauren and tells her she has 1 hour to pack her things before he calls the police to remove her for trespassing. Lauren grabs her phone and storms out, already dialing. Within 30 minutes, Marcus' phone explodes with text messages and calls. His mother, his brother Kyle, his business partners, the board members of Whitfield Technologies. Everyone has somehow heard that Marcus has brought a black woman and mixed-race children into the family home. Everyone has opinions. But the twist Marcus doesn't see coming happens at 11:30 that morning. Lauren doesn't just call Victoria. She calls her friend Whitney, who runs a Boston society blog called Beacon Hill Whispers. By noon, the story is online with photos that someone, probably Lauren herself, took from the front windows. The headline reads, Tech billionaire Marcus Whitfield's secret black baby mama scandal. The article is vicious. It describes Simone as a homeless woman who trapped Marcus with fake children. It questions whether the children are really his. It includes quotes from anonymous sources, definitely Lauren, saying Marcus is being manipulated and that the woman has a history of targeting wealthy men. The comments section fills within minutes. Most are racist. Some are threatening. All are horrible. Someone posts Simone's old address. Someone posts the name of the children's school. Marcus watches in real time as his private family crisis becomes public entertainment, as internet strangers dissect whether his children look white enough to really be his, as people debate whether he's a fool or a hero or a disgusting race traitor. By evening, the story has been picked up by 3 tabloid websites and is trending on social media. Someone makes a meme of Maya's face with cruel captions. Someone else starts a conspiracy theory that Simone is actually a con artist who's done this before to other wealthy men. The Whitfield Technologies stock price drops 2% on rumors that the CEO is unstable. And through all of this, Simone sits in one of the guest bedrooms with her children, watching her nightmare unfold in real time. Watching as the internet does to her what Victoria Whitfield did 9 years ago, telling her she doesn't belong, that her children are mistakes, that she should disappear. Marcus finds her there at midnight. She's not crying. She's past crying. She just looks at him and says they need to leave, that this was a mistake, that she should have known better than to think anything could be different. But Marcus shakes his head. He sits down beside her and shows her his phone. Has been making calls. Has hiring lawyers. Has fighting back. Because if Victoria Whitfield thinks she can destroy his family twice, she's about to learn that her son is no longer the naive 29-year-old who believed her lies. The emergency board meeting of Whitfield Technologies happens 3 days after the story breaks, in a conference room on the 42nd floor with views of Boston Harbor that Marcus usually finds calming but today just feels like being trapped in a glass cage. 8 board members sit around the polished mahogany table, 7 of them old white men in suits that cost more than most people's monthly rent. One of them a white woman who made her fortune in commercial real estate. Marcus has founded this company at 25, with his inheritance and a brilliant algorithm, has grown it into a tech giant worth $3 billion, but right now he's being treated like an employee who's made a catastrophic mistake. Richard Donovan, who's been on the board since the beginning and who plays golf with Victoria every Sunday, leads the attack. He talks about optics and brand image and shareholder concerns. He says the story has damaged the company's reputation. He shows Marcus printouts of social media reactions, news articles, blog posts. He points out that 3 major clients have expressed concerns about continuing their contracts. He uses words like discretion and appropriate response, and family values. He never once uses racial slurs, but everyone in the room knows exactly what he means when he talks about the situation being handled properly. Marcus listens without interrupting. Has learned in 9 years of business that letting people finish their attacks tells you exactly where they're vulnerable. Janet Wexler, the real estate mogul, joins in. She says the company needs to consider its image. She says Marcus' personal life is affecting professional operations. She suggests, delicately, that perhaps the best solution would be to establish trust funds for the children, generous ones of course, and help the mother find appropriate housing elsewhere. Separate but comfortable. Taken care of but not visible. Marcus asks if she's suggesting he abandon his children. Janet says abandon is such a harsh word. She says provide for would be more accurate. She says the children don't need to live in Marcus' home to be supported financially. She says wouldn't everyone be happier this way? The mother back with her own people, the children growing up in a more appropriate environment. Marcus asks her to define appropriate environment. Janet's smile freezes. She says she simply means a less overwhelming situation, that going from homeless to Beacon Hill is quite a transition for children, that perhaps somewhere more modest would be less traumatic, somewhere in Roxbury or Dorchester or Mattapan, the black neighborhoods, though she doesn't say that part out loud. The board member who drops the real bomb is Thomas Ashford, 73 years old, 4th-generation Harvard graduate, family money so old it remembers when Boston Harbor was full of tea. He says very carefully that the board has a fiduciary responsibility to the shareholders. He says the shareholders need confidence in leadership. He says there are questions, not from him of course, but from others, about whether the children are actually Marcus' biological offspring. He suggests that DNA testing might resolve some of the uncertainty. He says, if Marcus can prove paternity, then of course the board will support appropriate arrangements. But until then, Perhaps Marcus is being manipulated by a very convincing woman who saw an opportunity. Marcus feels something cold settle in his chest. He tells Thomas he's already ordered DNA testing, and the results will be available in 1 week. Thomas nods approvingly, but then adds that even if the test is positive, the board may need to consider whether Marcus' judgment has been compromised. He says bringing a homeless woman and children into the family home without proper vetting was impulsive. He says the subsequent media scandal has cost the company millions in market capitalization. He says perhaps Marcus should consider taking a leave of absence until the situation stabilizes. It's not a request. It's a threat. Marcus looks around the table and sees it clearly now. This isn't about protecting the company. This is about Victoria. His mother has gotten to every single one of these board members. She's activated her network of old money and social connections. She's called in favors and made threats and ensured that her son will be punished for defying her. The vote happens 15 minutes later. 7-1, with only Marcus voting against. The board places him on mandatory administrative leave pending a competency evaluation. His access to company systems is suspended. His signing authority is revoked. His assistant is reassigned. Hess still CEO in title, but he has no power. And the racist comments from the board members pale in comparison to what his children face at school. Marcus has enrolled the triplets at Ashwood Academy, an elite private school in Cambridge, where tuition costs $45,000 per year, and where the student body is 92% white. He thought giving them the best education money could buy would help them. He was wrong. On their third day, Maya comes home with tears streaming down her face. A group of girls in her class told her she only got in because her daddy felt sorry for her. They said she probably doesn't even know who her real daddy is. They said her hair looks like a dirty mop. They asked if she lives in the projects or if she's homeless. The teacher heard it all and said nothing. Jordan faces worse. A boy in his class deliberately spills juice on his new clothes and calls it an accident. Another boy asks him if he knows how to read, or if he just pretends. During art class, someone draws a racist caricature and tapes it to Jordan's back. He wears it for 2 hours before a kind cafeteria worker quietly removes it. The art teacher, when informed, says boys will be boys, and that Jordan needs to toughen up if he's going to make it at Ashwood. Isaiah, brilliant Isaiah, who reads at a 6th grade level, raises his hand 19 times during math class and is never called on. His teacher calls on every white student, even the ones who don't have their hands raised, but never on Isaiah. When Isaiah finally calls out an answer without being recognized, he's sent to the principal's office for disruption. The principal, a thin white woman with silver hair and too much perfume, tells Marcus in a meeting that perhaps the children need more time to adjust to the academic rigor of Ashwood. She suggests they might be more comfortable at a less challenging school. She recommends several public schools in Roxbury and Dorchester, and Marcus sees through her polite language to the racism underneath. She doesn't want black children, even wealthy black children, contaminating her pristine white institution. Marcus pulls the triplets out of Ashwood after 1 week. He hires private tutors to come to the house. But the damage is done. Maya stops smiling. Jordan stops drawing. Isaiah starts having nightmares. They've gone from being homeless but together to being wealthy but isolated. And Marcus realizes that his money can't protect them from the racism that's baked into every institution in this city. The twist that breaks him happens on day 9 after he found them. His private investigator Gerald calls with news that makes Marcus' blood turn to ice. Victoria Whitfield has hired the most expensive family law firm in Massachusetts. She's filing for grandparents' rights and emergency custody of the triplets. Her lawyers are claiming that Simone is an unfit mother due to her recent homelessness, and that Marcus is experiencing a psychological break making him unfit as well. They're arguing that the children need to be removed immediately for their own safety and placed with their paternal grandmother, who can provide stability. The custody hearing is scheduled for 2 weeks from today. Gerald's voice is grim when he delivers the final piece of information. Victoria has already spoken to the judge assigned to the case. They're in the same social circle. They've vacationed together in Martha's Vineyard. The judge's husband works at the law firm Victoria is using. Marcus understands what this means. The system is rigged against them before they even walk into court. The DNA test results arrive in a manila envelope delivered by courier at 7:38 in the morning on a Tuesday that feels like the end and beginning of everything. Marcus opens the envelope with Simone sitting beside him in his study, both of them silent, both knowing what the results will say but needing the paper proof anyway. The laboratory report is clinical and precise. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. Marcus Whitfield is the biological father of Maya, Jordan, and Isaiah Carter. The relief and joy and overwhelming love that crashes through Marcus in that moment almost brings him to his knees. But Simone isn't celebrating. She's crying, and when Marcus asks why, she tells him about the day the triplets were born. It's a story she's never told anyone. A story she's kept locked inside because remembering it meant reliving the most terrifying day of her life. Simone was 30 weeks pregnant when her water broke. Too early. Dangerously early. She was alone in her small apartment in Dorchester because she had no one. Had cut off her family to protect them from Victoria's threats. Had no friends because working 2 jobs while pregnant with triplets didn't leave time for friendships. She called 911 and rode to the hospital alone, bleeding and terrified, while the paramedics tried to keep her calm. At Boston City Hospital, the county hospital where people without insurance or with Medicaid go when the private hospitals won't take them, Simone was processed through the emergency room like cattle. She waited 3 hours in triage while her contractions got worse. A nurse, a tired white woman who'd been on shift for 14 hours, kept calling her by the wrong name and asking if she knew who the baby's father was, implying with her tone that Simone probably didn't know, that she probably had multiple candidates, that this was the kind of situation to be expected from a woman like her. When Simone finally got to a delivery room, she was alone. No partner, no family, just a team of medical staff who treated her like a problem to be solved rather than a human being in crisis. The delivery was traumatic. Triplets at 30 weeks, each weighing less than 3 pounds. Maya came first, not breathing, whisked away to NICU before Simone could even see her. Jordan came second, tangled in the umbilical cord, blue and silent. Isaiah came last, the strongest of the 3 but still so tiny that Simone's wedding ring could slide over his wrist. And then Simone started hemorrhaging. She remembers the beeping of machines, the shouted medical jargon, the feeling of her life draining away onto white sheets that turned red. She remembers a doctor, a young white man who looked annoyed at the complication, telling her that they might need to do an emergency hysterectomy to stop the bleeding. She remembers thinking that Victoria Whitfield had won, that Simone was going to die in this hospital with no one who loved her nearby, that her babies would grow up without their mother, that Victoria would find them somehow and finish what Shed started. But Simone didn't die. A black female doctor, Dr. Patricia Moore, took over her case. Dr. Moore stayed for 6 hours past the end of her shift. Dr. Moore held Simone's hand and told her to fight. Dr. Moore saved her life and her uterus and then spent 3 days checking on her personally, bringing her food from outside because hospital food was garbage, and making sure Simone knew how to care for premature triplets when she finally got to take them home 9 weeks later. The medical bills were catastrophic. $273,000. Simone had no insurance because Victoria had made sure she was blacklisted from jobs. The $50,000 Victoria gave her was already nearly gone, spent on rent and prenatal care and basic survival. The hospital put Simone on a payment plan that would take 30 years to complete. She paid what she could, but the debt hung over her like a guillotine waiting to drop. Marcus listens to this story with tears running down his face. He asks why she didn't contact him after the birth, after Shed survived, after she knew the babies would live. Simone looks at him like Hez being deliberately dense. She says she tried. She tried 17 times in the first 3 months after the triplets were born, calling the Whitfield estate, leaving messages that were never returned, sending letters that were probably never delivered. She finally got through to someone, not Victoria but another household staff member, who told her that if she contacted the family again, they would file harassment charges and have her arrested. Simone had 3 premature babies and crushing medical debt. She couldn't risk jail, so she stopped trying. But Gerald, Marcus' investigator, isn't finished digging. He calls Marcus that afternoon with more information, and this information turns Marcus' sorrow into rage. Gerald has pulled financial records going back 9 years. Has traced payments from Victoria's personal accounts to various individuals and organizations. And what he's found is a systematic campaign of destruction aimed at Simone Carter. Victoria paid a hiring manager at a law firm where Simone applied to tell her the position was filled when it wasn't. Victoria paid a landlord to reject Simone's rental application despite her perfect credit at the time. Victoria paid an HR director to fire Simone from a promising paralegal position based on fabricated performance issues. For 9 years, every time Simone started to build something stable, Victoria destroyed it. The medical debt that followed Simone everywhere. Victoria had bought that debt from the hospital for pennies on the dollar and then aggressively pursued collection, garnishing Simone's wages, sending collectors to her home, ensuring she could never get ahead. The eviction that made Simone homeless. Victoria owned the apartment building through a shell corporation. Shed ordered the eviction even though Simone was only 1 month behind on rent. Gerald has paper trails for everything. Bank statements, wire transfers, emails between Victoria and her lawyers, discussing the best ways to ensure Simone remained desperate and isolated. And there are other victims. Gerald has found 3 other women of color who dated Whitfield family members over the past 20 years. One dated Marcus' brother Kyle before Victoria paid her $80,000 to leave the country. One dated Marcus' cousin before being forced out of her job through Victoria's influence and relocating to California. One dated Marcus' late father before Victoria and he were married, and Victoria had her arrested on false embezzlement charges that were later dropped, but not before the woman's reputation was destroyed. Victoria Whitfield has spent decades eliminating any woman of color who threatened her family's racial purity. But the twist that Gerald delivers last, the information that changes everything, is something he found on an old computer in the Whitfield estate storage room. Marcus' father, Thomas Whitfield Sr., died 5 years ago from a heart attack. Before his death, Head became increasingly worried about Victoria's behavior. Head started keeping records, secret recordings of conversations, insurance in case Victoria's actions ever put the family at legal risk. Gerald has obtained one of these recordings through a contact, a maid who'd been fired by Victoria and was happy to cooperate. The recording is from 9 years ago, just days after Simone disappeared. Thomas Whitfield Sr.'s voice on the recording is troubled. He asks Victoria what she did to Marcus' wife. Victoria's voice is clear and proud. She says she eliminated the black problem. She says she offered the girl money to abort, but the stupid thing probably kept it. She says it doesn't matter, because if Marcus ever finds out, she has paperwork proving the girl signed away all rights. She says she'll never let mongrel grandchildren ruin their legacy. That the Whitfield bloodline goes back to the Massachusetts Bay Colony, and she won't watch it become polluted by African genes. She says if Marcus ever brings home another non-white woman, she'll do worse than pay her off. Thomas' voice asks what she means by worse. Victoria laughs and says Marcus will never know. That's the important thing. And if Thomas has a problem with protecting their family, then he's weaker than she thought. The recording ends. Marcus plays it 3 times, listening to his mother's voice, admitting to crimes and bigotry and evil. Listening to his father's weak protests that never turned into action. He sits in his study with his head in his hands, while Simone sits beside him, and Gerald waits on the phone. Finally, Marcus asks if this recording is admissible in court. Gerald says, it depends on the judge, but probably yes, since Thomas recorded it in his own home. Marcus asks if there's more. Gerald says he's still digging, but he thinks Victoria may have committed actual crimes beyond just the moral ones, and that he needs a few more days to build the complete picture. Marcus tells him to take whatever time he needs and spare no expense. Because Marcus is done being passive. His mother declared war on his family 9 years ago. Now Marcus is going to finish it. Marcus drives to the Whitfield family estate in Brookline on a Saturday morning when he knows his mother will be home. When Shelby in her conservatory, having tea and reading the society pages, when Shelby at her most secure and comfortable. He doesn't call ahead. He walks through the front door, using the key he's had since childhood, past the new housekeeper who tries to stop him, through the marble foyer where he learned to walk, and directly into the conservatory where Victoria Whitfield sits, surrounded by orchids and ferns like some kind of racist fairy tale villain. She looks up when he enters, and her smile is cold and sharp. She says, "Marcus, "Darling, have you come to your senses finally?" She pours him tea without asking if he wants it. English breakfast with 1 sugar, the way he's taken it since he was 12. And she asks if he's ready to discuss arrangements for the children. She says she's spoken to a lovely boarding school in New Hampshire that specializes in troubled youth and mixed-race children. She says the school has excellent success rates at civilizing them. Marcus doesn't sit down. He pulls out his phone and plays the recording. His father's voice fills the conservatory, asking what Victoria did to Marcus' wife. Then Victoria's voice, 9 years younger but just as venomous, explaining exactly how she eliminated the black problem. Marcus watches his mother's face while she listens. He expects shock or shame, or at least some attempt at denial. Instead, Victoria finishes her tea, sets down the cup with careful precision, and looks at him with something like pity. She says, "So he finally found out." She says Shed hoped he never would, but clearly that woman poisoned him against his own family. She says every word on that recording is true, and Shed do it again in a heartbeat because someone had to protect the Whitfield legacy. Marcus asks if she understands what she's admitting to. Victoria laughs. She says admitting to what? To being a good mother, to saving her son from a catastrophic mistake. She says mixed-race marriages don't work. Everyone knows that. The statistics are terrible. She says those children, and she won't use their names, will never be accepted in Boston society. She says Marcus is destroying everything his ancestors built because he's thinking with his emotions instead of his brain. She says if he had any sense, he'd pay the woman off again, send her somewhere far away, and marry Lauren, who's from good stock. Marcus tells her about the DNA test. Victoria waves it away like an annoying fly. She says, of course, the children are biologically his. That was never in question. She says biology doesn't determine suitability. She says there are solutions for children like that, institutions and programs that can give them adequate lives without contaminating the family. Marcus tells her he's filing charges, criminal charges for fraud, for forgery, for conspiracy, for whatever else his lawyers can make stick. Victoria's expression finally changes, not to fear but to something harder. She tells Marcus if he tries to move against her, she'll destroy him. She'll use every connection she has, every judge, every lawyer, every politician who owes the Whitfield family favors. She'll drag Simone through the mud until her reputation is nothing but ashes. She'll fight for custody of the children, and she'll win because she has resources and patience and a complete lack of mercy. She says she's already started the process. Marcus knows about the grandparents' rights petition, of course, but Victoria tells him there's more. She's filed complaints with the Massachusetts Department of Children and Families, claiming the children are in danger. She's had a psychologist, a friend from her country club, write an evaluation of Marcus based on public information suggesting he's experiencing a manic episode. She's arranged for sympathetic news coverage, portraying her as a concerned grandmother trying to save her son and grandchildren from a scheming woman. The custody hearing in 2 weeks is just the beginning. After that comes the defamation suits, the restraining orders, the child welfare investigations, the slow grinding machinery of the legal system that favors the rich and connected. Victoria has declared total war, and she has weapons Marcus didn't know existed. His mother stands, walks to the windows overlooking her perfectly manicured gardens, and tells him he still has a choice. Give up Simone and place the children in a nice private facility where they'll be well cared for, and Victoria will drop everything. She'll even set up trust funds. The children will want for nothing except their parents. And honestly, Victoria says, children are resilient. They'll adjust. They always do. But if Marcus insists on this ridiculous crusade, if he really wants to fight her in court, then he needs to understand that she will burn his entire life to the ground to win. She'll take his company, his reputation, his money. She'll make sure those children grow up knowing their father chose to destroy his own life for nothing. Marcus looks at his mother, this woman who raised him, who taught him piano and took him to museum galas, who he thought loved him, and he realizes he never really knew her at all. He turns to leave, but Victoria isn't finished. She calls after him that she's already spoken to the board members at Whitfield Technologies. She's reminded them of their obligations, their social connections, their own interests. She says 7 of the 9 board members are on her side. She says if Marcus doesn't resign as CEO voluntarily, they'll vote him out at the next shareholders meeting. She says his company, the thing he built from nothing, will be stripped away piece by piece. The final twist comes from Kyle, Marcus' younger brother, who's been standing in the doorway of the conservatory listening to everything. Kyle is 35, has never had a real job because the family trust fund pays him 6 figures annually, and has always been Victoria's favorite because he never questioned her, or challenged her, or disappointed her. Kyle steps into the conservatory and tells Marcus that he's going to testify at the custody hearing. He's going to tell the judge that Marcus is unstable, that Simone is manipulative, that the children would be better off with their grandmother. Victoria beams at Kyle like he's just won a Nobel Prize. Marcus asks his brother why. Kyle shrugs and says because Mom asked him to, and also because honestly Marcus has always been the golden child, the successful one, the one Dad was proud of, and it's kind of nice to watch him fail for once. Kyle says maybe if Marcus loses everything, he'll finally understand what it's like to be the disappointment. Marcus leaves the Whitfield estate understanding that he's not just fighting his mother, he's fighting an entire system built to protect people like her, built on old money and older racism, built on the assumption that some people simply matter more than others. But Marcus isn't the naive 29-year-old who let his mother lie to him anymore. He's a billionaire with his own resources. And if Victoria wants war, he'll give her war. Simone has been staying silent through most of this, letting Marcus fight his family battles while she focuses on keeping the triplets stable and safe. But when Marcus comes home from his mother's estate and tells her about Kyle's betrayal and Victoria's threats, something changes in Simone's face. She's been a victim for 9 years, she says. She's been running and hiding and protecting her children by staying invisible. But invisibility didn't save her. It didn't save her children. And she's done being passive. She tells Marcus she's kept evidence. Everything. Every threatening letter Victoria sent her 9 years ago. Every voicemail, back when Simone still had her old phone before she changed numbers, where Victoria called her racial slurs and threatened her life. Every email, every text message, everything. She has it all stored on an old laptop she's kept safe even when they were homeless, even when she had to choose between food and storage fees. She has proof of every job application that was mysteriously rejected. She has proof of the debt collection harassment. She has dates and times and names. She's been documenting her own destruction because some part of her always knew this day would come. That Victoria would eventually try to take her children, and Simone was determined to fight back with the truth when that moment arrived. Marcus stares at her. He asks why she didn't tell him this before. Simone says because she didn't trust him yet, didn't know if he'd choose her and the children over his family, didn't know if he'd be like his mother. But she knows now. She sees how he's fighting for them, so she's ready to fight too. Gerald, the private investigator who's become something like a friend through this nightmare, takes Simone's evidence and combines it with his own research. What he builds is a case that goes beyond family drama into something actionable. Victoria didn't just pay people off. She conspired to defraud, to forge legal documents, to interfere with employment. She used her influence to violate anti-discrimination laws. She bought Simone's medical debt and then weaponized it in ways that might constitute illegal collection practices. Gerald digs even deeper and finds something explosive. The Whitfield Foundation, a charitable organization that Victoria has run for 20 years, shows some interesting financial irregularities. Gerald brings in a forensic accountant who spends 72 hours going through public tax filings and leaked internal documents provided by a disgruntled former employee. What they find is embezzlement on a massive scale. Over 12 years, Victoria has siphoned off $12.4 million from the foundation's accounts. The foundation is supposed to provide scholarships to underprivileged youth in Boston. Instead, Victoria has been paying herself consulting fees, reimbursing personal expenses as business costs, and directing foundation money into investments that benefit her personally. The forensic accountant says it's one of the cleanest cases of nonprofit fraud he's ever seen. And he's seen a lot because rich people always think they're too smart to get caught. Marcus takes this information to the best civil rights attorney in Massachusetts, a woman named Diane Reeves, who built her career fighting housing discrimination and police brutality. Diane is 58, black, brilliant, and absolutely ruthless in court. She takes one look at the evidence and smiles like a shark smelling blood. She says Victoria Whitfield has made a catastrophic mistake. By filing for custody, she's opened herself up to discovery. By claiming to act in the children's best interests, Shay's made her own character relevant. By painting Simone as unfit, Shay's allowed them to introduce evidence of why Simone was in desperate circumstances. And the embezzlement, Diane says. That's the nuclear option. That's federal prison. That's the end of Victoria's world. They have 2 weeks until the custody hearing. Diane assembles a team, 2 junior attorneys, 3 paralegals, and a media consultant because this case is going to be fought in the court of public opinion as much as in the courthouse. They work 18-hour days. They file motions. They gather declarations from the 3 other women of color that Victoria drove away from the family. They subpoena Victoria's financial records. They prepare Simone to testify, running her through practice questions over and over until she can tell her story without breaking down. Marcus liquidates assets. He sells stock, cashes out investments, and pulls together $23 million in liquid funds. Some of it goes to Diane's legal fees, but most of it goes to something else. Marcus creates a trust fund for his children, irrevocable and untouchable. Managed by Simone as primary trustee, the trust owns his shares in Whitfield Technologies, effectively transferring control of the company away from the board and away from Victoria's influence. It's a financial nuclear bomb. If Victoria tries to take the children, she'll have to go through Simone, who now controls a $1 billion company's worth of stock. If the board tries to remove Marcus, they'll have to negotiate with Simone, who can vote those shares. Marcus has essentially given up his empire to protect his family, and he'd do it again in a heartbeat. Gerald finds one more piece of the puzzle. He tracks down the 3 women Victoria paid off and convinces them to testify. The first woman, Keisha, who dated Kyle, is now a successful restaurant owner in Miami. She flew back to Boston on Marcus' dime and sat in Diane's office describing how Victoria called her a ghetto Jezebel and threatened to have her deported even though Keisha was born in Atlanta. The second woman, Lisa, who dated Marcus' cousin, is a corporate lawyer in Los Angeles. She video-conferenced in because she's 8 months pregnant and can't fly. But her testimony is damning. Victoria told her that black women were fine for sex but not for marriage, that they were genetically inferior, that no Whitfield man would ever be allowed to legitimize one by making her family. The third woman, Angela, who dated Marcus' father before Victoria, is 63 now and dying of breast cancer. Shay's the one who provided the recording from Thomas Whitfield's computer. She tells Diane that Victoria is evil in a way people don't recognize because evil wearing pearls and sitting on charity boards doesn't look like evil. But Angela knows. Victoria destroyed her entire life 40 years ago, destroyed her career, destroyed her reputation, got her blacklisted from every law firm in Boston because Angela dared to love a Whitfield man when she was black. Angela says testifying might be the last meaningful thing she does before cancer takes her, and she wants Victoria to pay. The team prepares their case like generals planning an invasion. They have evidence, witnesses, expert testimony. They have the recording of Victoria admitting to her crimes. They have financial records showing embezzlement. They have documentation of 9 years of harassment. But the twist that Gerald delivers 3 days before the hearing changes their entire strategy. Has found out who the judge is. Judge Lorraine Williams, appointed to the Massachusetts Family Court 6 years ago after a distinguished career as a public defender. Judge Williams is a 52-year-old black woman from Dorchester who grew up in the projects and put herself through law school working 3 jobs. She's known for being tough but fair, for not taking nonsense from wealthy litigants who think money buys justice, for protecting children above all else. Victoria tried to get the case moved to a different judge, using her connections. But Judge Williams refused to recuse herself without a valid legal reason. Marcus and Diane read Judge Williams' previous rulings. Shez ruled against wealthy parents before, when evidence showed they were unfit. Shez terminated parental rights. Shez also reunified families when children were removed incorrectly. She follows the law and the evidence, nothing more. Which means this case will be decided on truth, not influence. It's the first piece of real hope Marcus has felt in weeks. Victoria's empire of connections can't touch Judge Williams because Judge Williams doesn't care about Boston society or old money or who knows who. She cares about children, And when she hears what Victoria did to Simone and the triplets, Diane says with absolute confidence, she's going to destroy Victoria in ways the old woman can't imagine. The hearing is set for Monday at 9 in the morning. Marcus, Simone, and the triplets spend the weekend preparing. They talk to the children honestly about what's going to happen, about how their grandmother is trying to take them away, about how they need to be brave. Maya asks if they're going to lose. Marcus kneels down to her level and promises that he will fight with everything he has. Jordan asks if their grandmother hates them because they're black. Simone's heart breaks, but she answers honestly. Yes, she says. Some people hate others for their skin color, and it's wrong and evil, but it's real. Isaiah asks if they're going to be okay. Neither Marcus nor Simone can promise that, but they can promise they'll face it together. The Suffolk County Family Courthouse is an imposing brick building in downtown Boston that's seen thousands of families torn apart and put back together. Marcus, Simone, and their legal team arrive at 8:30, early enough to avoid most of the media circus, but not early enough to avoid all of it. Cameras flash. Reporters shout questions. Someone calls Simone a gold digger. Someone else calls Marcus a race traitor. Police officers keep the crowd back while they enter the building through security. Inside, the courthouse is all marble and wood and the weight of judgment. Victoria arrives at 8:45 with her legal team of 6 attorneys led by Preston Chambers, the most expensive family lawyer in New England. Preston has won cases for billionaires and celebrities and politicians. He's never lost a custody battle in 23 years of practice. Victoria is dressed in an impeccable cream suit with pearls, looking like every wealthy grandmother in American TV. Sympathetic and concerned. Her performance for the cameras is masterful. She dabs at her eyes with a handkerchief. She says she only wants what's best for her grandchildren. She says she's worried about their welfare. The courtroom itself is smaller than Marcus expected, with wooden benches and fluorescent lighting and an American flag in the corner. Judge Lorraine Williams enters at 9 exactly. She's tall and imposing in her black robes, her silver-streaked hair pulled back, her expression giving away nothing. She reads the case number and names, explains the purpose of the hearing, and asks both sides if they're ready to proceed. Preston Chambers stands and begins his opening statement. He paints a picture of Marcus as a successful businessman who's recently become erratic and impulsive. He describes Simone as a homeless woman with no stable income and a history of financial problems. He says the children have been living on the street for months, that they're malnourished and behind in school, that they need stability. He says Victoria Whitfield is a loving grandmother who can provide that stability, who has resources and experience, who only wants to ensure her grandchildren are safe. He suggests that Marcus has been manipulated by Simone, that he's experiencing some kind of psychological break, that he needs help. He says the best solution is temporary custody with Victoria, while Marcus gets treatment and Simone gets back on her feet, with visitation rights for both parents, of course, because Victoria isn't trying to separate the family, she's trying to protect it. It's a convincing argument delivered with polished confidence. Judge Williams listens without expression. Then she turns to Diane Reeves. Diane stands, and her opening statement is a bomb. She says this case isn't about what's best for children. It's about a wealthy white woman who spent 9 years systematically destroying a black woman's life because she dared to marry into the Whitfield family and have biracial children. Diane lays out the timeline. The marriage, the pregnancy, Victoria's threats, the $50,000 that was supposed to include an abortion, the forged documents, the years of employment sabotage, the medical debt harassment, the bought eviction, all of it. Preston objects repeatedly, but Judge Williams allows it, saying she wants to hear the full context. Diane then drops the embezzlement evidence. She has bank records showing Victoria stole over $12 million from a charitable foundation meant to help the exact kind of children she's now claiming to want to protect. She has the recording of Victoria admitting she eliminated the black problem. She has testimony from 3 other women of color who Victoria drove away. Judge Williams' expression finally changes. It gets harder. She asks Preston if he was aware of these allegations. Preston says they're baseless accusations and character assassination. Diane hands the judge a thumb drive containing the audio recording and financial documents. Judge Williams calls a recess and disappears into her chambers for 45 minutes. When she returns, Her face is set like stone. The testimony begins. Preston calls Victoria to the stand first. She's a perfect witness, calm and articulate. She expresses concern for the children. She admits she made mistakes 9 years ago, but says she was acting out of love, trying to protect her son from a marriage she believed was doomed. She denies the more serious allegations. She suggests the recording is fabricated or taken out of context. She says the financial irregularities in the foundation are accounting errors that she's happy to explain. She says she's not racist. She has black friends. She supports racial justice causes. It's a masterclass in wealthy white woman victimhood. Then Diane cross-examines. She walks Victoria through every payment, every threatening letter, every act of sabotage. She plays the audio recording in open court. Thomas Whitfield's voice asking what Victoria did. Victoria's voice admitting she eliminated the black problem, that she'd never let mongrel grandchildren ruin their legacy. Present-day Victoria tries to explain it away, says it sounds worse than it was, says she was upset that day. Diane asks if Victoria believes black people are genetically inferior to white people. Victoria says, of course not. Diane asks if Victoria referred to her own grandchildren as mongrels. Victoria says she was speaking rhetorically. Diane asks if Victoria embezzled $12.4 million from a charity. Victoria says that's under investigation, and she's not required to answer. Judge Williams intervenes and says actually, Victoria is required to answer. Victoria invokes her Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. The courtroom goes silent. By invoking the Fifth in a civil custody case, Victoria has essentially admitted that answering might expose her to criminal prosecution. Preston Chambers looks like he wants to disappear. The afternoon session brings Simone to the stand. She's terrified but prepared. Diane walks her through the entire story. The marriage, the love she and Marcus shared, the pregnancy, Victoria's threats, the $50,000, the horror of giving birth alone, the years of struggle, the homelessness. Through it all, Simone maintains her composure. She cries when describing her children's birth, but she doesn't break. She looks directly at Judge Williams and says she made mistakes, but she never stopped fighting for her children, never stopped loving them, never gave up even when Victoria Whitfield tried to destroy her. Preston's cross-examination is vicious. He asks why Simone took the money if Victoria was so terrible. Simone says she was 25 and pregnant and terrified. He asks why she didn't contact Marcus after the children were born. Simone says she tried 17 times. He asks why she didn't go to the police about the harassment. Simone says because she was a black woman accusing a wealthy white woman, and who would believe her. Preston asks why she ended up homeless if she was such a good mother. Simone's voice breaks, but she answers, because Victoria Whitfield sabotaged every job, bought her debt, and had her evicted. Because the system is designed to crush people like her. Because being a good mother isn't enough when someone with money and power decides to destroy you. The courtroom is dead silent. Even Preston seems to realize he's made a mistake. By attacking Simone this aggressively, he's just proven Diane's point about how the system treats black women. The next witnesses are the 3 women Victoria paid off: Keisha, Lisa, and Angela. Each tells their story. Each describes Victoria's racism. Each corroborates the pattern. Angela, dying of cancer and with nothing to lose, looks directly at Victoria and calls her evil. She says Victoria destroyed her life 40 years ago and is trying to destroy Simone's life now. And the only difference is that this time someone is fighting back. The expert witnesses come next. A psychologist testifies that the children are bonding well with Marcus, that they show no signs of abuse or neglect in his care, that separating them from both parents would be traumatic. A financial expert explains the embezzlement in detail. A forensic document examiner testifies that the signatures on the documents Simone supposedly signed 9 years ago are forgeries. By the time the hearing recesses for the day, Preston's case is in ruins, but he has one more card to play. He calls Kyle Whitfield to the stand. Kyle is supposed to testify that Marcus is unstable, that Simone is manipulative, that the children need Victoria's stability. Kyle is sworn in. He sits in the witness chair, looking nervous. Preston asks him to describe his brother's recent behavior. Kyle opens his mouth. Then he closes it. Then he starts crying. He says he can't do it. He says his mother told him to lie, told him to testify against Marcus, and he was going to because he was angry and jealous. But sitting here listening to Simone's testimony, listening to what Victoria did, he can't be part of it anymore. He says Marcus is the best person he knows. He says Simone deserves respect, not destruction. He says the children belong with their parents. He says he's sorry. Victoria's face goes white with rage. Preston tries to salvage the testimony, but Kyle won't stop talking. He admits Victoria threatened to cut him off if he didn't cooperate. He admits she paid off board members to suspend Marcus. He admits she's been orchestrating everything from behind the scenes. He says his mother is a racist who's been controlling the family through money and manipulation for decades, and he's done being her puppet. Judge Williams calls a recess. The courtroom erupts in murmurs. Victoria storms out with her legal team scrambling behind her. Marcus sits with Simone and Diane, hardly daring to hope. When court reconvenes, Judge Williams delivers her ruling. She says she's reviewed all the evidence, heard all the testimony, and considered the best interests of the children. She says Victoria Whitfield has demonstrated a pattern of racist harassment, financial manipulation, and criminal conduct that makes her manifestly unfit to have custody or even unsupervised visitation with her grandchildren. She grants full custody to Marcus and Simone as joint parents with equal rights. She issues a restraining order preventing Victoria from contacting the children or coming within 500 feet of them. She refers the embezzlement evidence to the Massachusetts Attorney General for criminal prosecution. Hello. I'm delighted to assist you with our voice services. Choose a voice that resonates with you, and let's begin our creative audio journey together. His mother, the woman who raised him, is going to prison. His brother Kyle is in therapy trying to unpack decades of manipulation. His company is in turmoil. His engagement to Lauren ended so badly that she's threatening her own lawsuits. Everything Marcus thought he knew about his life was built on lies and racism and cruelty. But he has his children, and he has Simone. Except 6 days after the custody hearing, Simone sits Marcus down in his study and delivers a twist he never saw coming. She declines his marriage proposal. Marcus hadn't actually proposed yet, but he was planning to, had bought the ring and everything. A 3-carat diamond that cost more than Simone made in 5 years as a paralegal. Simone looks at the ring when he tries to show it to her and shakes her head. She says no. Marcus asks why. Simone takes a breath and explains. She says the past 3 weeks have been about survival and fighting and protecting their children, and those are good reasons to be partners, but not good reasons to be married. She says she doesn't want to rebuild their relationship out of guilt or obligation, or because Marcus feels he owes her something. She says 9 years ago they were different people, and those people loved each other, but those people don't exist anymore. They've both been changed by trauma and loss, and the hard work of surviving. She says she needs time to figure out who she is now, who she wants to be, what life she wants to build. She says Marcus needs the same thing, needs to process his mother's betrayal and his family's destruction and the weight of everything he's learned. She says they have time. The children have both parents now. They're safe. They're stable. And Simone wants to co-parent as equals, while she rebuilds her own life on her own terms. Not as Marcus Whitfield's wife or his charity case or his redemption arc, but as herself. Simone Carter. Marcus argues at first. He says he loves her. Simone says she knows. And she loves him too. But love isn't enough. She says the first time they got married, they did it despite his family's disapproval. Did it like rebels. Did it without thinking about the consequences. She says if they get married again, and she says if not when, she wants it to be, because they choose each other as complete and healed people, not because circumstances pushed them together. She wants it to be a beginning, not a conclusion. Marcus realizes she's right. He doesn't want to trap her with gratitude disguised as love. He doesn't want her to stay because she feels obligated or because she's afraid of being alone again. He wants her to stay because she wants to, because she chooses him freely, because they've built something real together. So he agrees. They'll co-parent. They'll be partners in raising their children. They'll figure out the rest as they go. 6 months pass. Victoria Whitfield is indicted on 14 federal charges including embezzlement, tax fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy. Her trial is set for the following year, but her lawyers are already negotiating a plea deal. The prosecution is pushing for a 15-year sentence. Victoria's attorneys think they can get it down to 10. Either way, the woman who ran Boston society from behind the scenes is going to die in federal prison. The board members of Whitfield Technologies who participated in suspending Marcus are forced to resign after evidence emerges of Victoria's bribery. Marcus is reinstated as CEO, but he only stays for 3 months before stepping down voluntarily. Has done with the corporate world. Instead, he establishes the Simone Carter Foundation, named over her protests, dedicated to fighting housing insecurity and helping families experiencing homelessness. The foundation's first project is a housing development in Roxbury that provides permanent supportive housing for 50 families. Marcus hires Simone as the foundation's director of legal services once she passes the bar exam. Yes, Simone goes back to school. With Marcus providing childcare and financial support, she's finally able to complete her education. She takes the bar exam 6 months after the custody hearing and passes on her first try. She becomes a civil rights attorney specializing in housing discrimination and family law. Her first case is representing a black woman whose children were taken by the Department of Children and Families based on false allegations. Simone wins. The children go home. It's the beginning of a career that will make her one of the most respected civil rights attorneys in Massachusetts. Kyle Whitfield, Marcus' brother, uses his inheritance to start an organization supporting people recovering from narcissistic family abuse. Has been in therapy 3 times a week working through his relationship with Victoria. He and Marcus are slowly rebuilding their relationship. It's awkward and painful, but they're trying. The triplets thrive. Maya, Jordan, and Isaiah attend a different private school, one that Marcus researched extensively to ensure it has strong anti-racism policies and diverse staff. The children make friends. They join clubs. Maya wants to be a judge like Judge Williams. Jordan's art is displayed in a school exhibition. Isaiah starts writing stories about superheroes who fight injustice. They see a therapist to process their trauma, but they're resilient and loved and safe. Marcus and Simone don't get back together. Not in the romantic sense, but they become something better. True partners, best friends, co-parents who respect and trust each other. They have dinner together several times a week. They celebrate holidays together. They support each other's careers and dreams. Sometimes Marcus wonders if they'll eventually be more, if Simone will ever be ready to try again, but he doesn't push. Hez learning that love isn't about possession or rescue or grand gestures. It's about showing up, being present, doing the work. The final scene takes place on a spring evening at the children's school for a performance of The Wizard of Oz. Maya plays Dorothy. Jordan designed half the sets. Isaiah has a speaking role as a munchkin, which he takes very seriously. Marcus and Simone sit together in the audience, their shoulders touching, watching their children perform under bright lights. The other parents in the audience know who they are. Everyone knows about the custody battle and Victoria's fall and the scandal that rocked Boston society. Some people whisper. Some people stare. But most people just see what Marcus and Simone see. 3 talented children living their best lives. When the play ends, Maya spots her parents in the audience and waves so hard her arm looks like it might fall off. Jordan takes an elaborate bow. Isaiah gives a solemn nod. Simone turns to Marcus with tears in her eyes and whispers 2 words. We won. And they did. Not just the custody battle or the legal case or the fight against Victoria, they won something bigger. They won the right to build their own definition of family. They won freedom from the racism and hatred that tried to destroy them. They won the chance to raise their children in truth and love and justice. Marcus takes Simone's hand, just for a moment, and squeezes. She squeezes back. They'll figure out the rest later. Right now, this is enough. The story could end here, on this note of hope and healing. But there's one more twist. As they're leaving the school that night, Marcus receives an email on his phone. It's from the U.S. Attorney's office handling Victoria's case. Victoria has rejected the plea deal. She's taking her case to trial. And she's subpoenaed Marcus, Simone, and the children to testify. The fight isn't over. It's just beginning. But this time, Marcus and Simone face it together. This time, they have weapons, and allies, and the truth on their side. This time, they're not victims. They're warriors. And they're going to make sure that when the final verdict comes down, justice doesn't just whisper. It screams. The screen fades to black with white text appearing. 6 months later, Victoria Whitfield is convicted on all 14 counts and sentenced to 15 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. Marcus Whitfield steps down as CEO of Whitfield Technologies and devotes his life to fighting systemic racism in housing and employment. Simone Carter becomes one of Boston's most prominent civil rights attorneys, winning landmark cases that change Massachusetts law. Maya, Jordan, and Isaiah grow up knowing their parents fought for them, knowing they're loved, knowing they matter. The Whitfield family legacy of racism and cruelty ends with Victoria's generation. A new legacy of justice and love begins. And somewhere in Boston, a young black girl living in a shelter sees Simone Carter's face on the news and thinks maybe, just maybe, she can fight back too. Have you ever witnessed or experienced racial discrimination in your own life? Whether subtle or overt? How did you respond? And what do you think we can all do to create a more just society for our children? Share your thoughts in the comments below. This story represents thousands of real families who face systemic racism and discrimination every single day. If this story moved you, please like this video and share it with others who need to hear this message. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories about justice, resilience, and the strength of the human spirit. Together, we can amplify voices that have been silenced for too long. Thank you for watching, for listening, and for caring. May we all have the courage to fight for what's right, the wisdom to recognize injustice when we see it, and the love to build a better world for every child, regardless of their race, background, or circumstances. Remember, every act of standing up for justice, no matter how small, creates ripples that can change the world.